I never thought I'd say this out loud. My property got raided by people who looked like cops, with vests, guns, and clipboards that unsurprisingly turned out to be fake. They came over an HOA dispute. They thought they were walking into my trap. Turns out they walked straight into mine. Stay with me. Tell me where you're re-listening from. Because this one went from petty to full-blown operation, and you'll want to hear how it unfolded. You know that weird place where you finally have what you've struggled for, and you aren't quite trust it? That was me, on my porch. Coffee in my hand. Staring out over 120 acres I sweated and scarred for. No boss shouting, no strangers screaming, just my dogs, the goats, a tractor older than me, and a silence that finally allowed me to breathe. I figured purchasing this ranch was purchasing peace. I was wrong. It began small. A white plastic sign zip-tied to my fence. Property under review. Simmons Valley HOA compliance required. I glared at it long enough for it to seem silly, ripped it down, burned it, and told myself it was kids dabbling in authority. That was error number 1. Not realizing how far humans will go when a clipboard gives them the feeling of power. The following day, Karen came by. SUV, the dull gray of hospital corridors, parked as if half of a military deployment. She emerged in pastel pink and pressed khakis, mirrored sunglasses, clipboard under her arm like a weapon. She greeted with a smile that was judgment, not welcome. Karen Simmons, president of HOA, just making my rounds. Her tone was syrupy. Her purpose was not. She gave me a welcome packet filled with bogus bylaws, charts, red-circled photos of my property from directions I hadn't even known were possible. I incinerated that as well. 2 days later, laminated signs returned taller, larger, and nailed to my barn. This time, they brought reinforcements. Men in coordinated khakis. Vests with iron-on name tags that said HOA Patrol walkie-talkies clipboards. They patrolled my fence line like it was a mission. One of them even nodded at my tractor and spoke into his mic. I moved off the porch, asked them what they were doing there, and they read off a script about compliance sweeps under the Simmons Valley Charter. I explained that they were trespassing under the Callahan Charter and pointed them toward the gate. They departed, but one spilled his clipboard patrol maps, properties with red X's. Ours, said Alpha, high resistance. I took a picture of it and called a friend who was a sheriff's deputy. He'd never heard of an HOA such as ours, but he had heard of Karen. That phone call did it? Karen was not a one-time busybody. She had agendas, and they got serious quick. I set up not for combat, but for silliness. Motion detectors, trail cameras, remote lights, nothing deadly. Just enough to give anyone attempting to prowl around my house a second thought. Then they returned before the sun rose. Stealthy, deliberate steps that bear the wrong sort of confidence. The yard was quiet. My chickens hadn't even begun their morning fight. 5 shadows passed by the barn. Flashlights off, headlamps on, vests, khakis one with a clipboard. Their radios crackled. Team Alpha, in position. Begin sweep. Target presumed armed but compliant under Phase 1. I couldn't help but laugh at the ridiculous. But that laugh never made it to my eyes. Something old and trained inside mirrors I'd left behind booted awareness. Threat evaluation. Muscle memory. I slid on a jacket with an emergency light trigger in the pocket, since I wanted to observe their expressions when they discovered they were the sole ones who had a plan. They made their way across the fence until one activated a wire. Click. Then boom, floodlights blazed on. Sirens wailed from 4 corners. The barn was illuminated like a city intersection. 2 of them hit the ground. A dove behind a water trough and was butted by Linda the goat, who then glared him down as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I walked out onto the porch, drank cold coffee, and said, "Good morning. Y'all going to announce yourselves, or were you expecting surprise?" Clipboard dude stood up and droned on about HOA emergency code 7A. Gibberish regarding taking possession of non-compliant property. I grabbed his folder, and it was absurd draft stamps, coffee splatters, Meltagee's residue. Real authority doesn't present itself in such a way. Sheriff Langston then came by in a cruiser, lights blazing, and the would-be enforcers halted. He yanked a mock badge off the vest of one of them and thumbed through a leather-bound Simmons Valley Compliance Authority binder that appeared to be a prop from a cult induction within red-lighted violation classes, ranking charts, and a spreadsheet with my name red-marked obstructionist. High threat. Langston blew his whistle and called it what it was: coordinated and targeted. He threatened a fraud investigator, perhaps even the feds. Karen didn't let up. She doubled down. When her campaign became public, it started to appear seemingly deliberate and terrifying. Flyers circulated, drone-taken images of my home-marked zone, be non-compliant, stapled notices at the end of the street, social shunning posters cautioning neighbors against unauthorized contact. Neighbors ceased waving. The owner of the feed store quietly increased prices. A family that had previously attended my 4th of July celebration posted in the neighborhood group, "We stand for order." Overnight, a crowd could be persuaded to stand idly by while neighbors were shunned. Karen held a yard rally, a fold-out table, a mic, a poster reading emergency compliance briefing, tier 3 response. She showed a flyer of my property and announced I'd refused reintegration and posed a threat. She handed out flyers like communion wafers. "If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the risk." People nodded, clapped. The following day, I received a laminated notice in my mail, categorizing me tier 3. Get rid of animals. Paint barn neutral gray. Re-education in Karen's garage. Orwell received a polo shirt. Then it turned ugly. My trail cams were slashed. Wires cut. A white sedan with no plates sat 2 houses down and then sped away, peeling out. The owner of the front end nonprofit. Karen had established a shell nonprofit Community Horizon Outreach to provide her surveillance with a veneer of legitimacy. Max, my border collie, appeared injured, that night paw bleeding, bits of intentional glass near the barn door. Langston referred to it as a message. I referred to it as crossing a line. That was when I went public. I posted videos. The staged raid. Staged seizure documents. Flyers. Max's injury. The HOAS law book. The video went viral hundreds of thousands in a day. Folks in other rural towns messaged me with the same tale. Karen's supporters dissipated. Half of her compliance department quit. But she was not finished. A few days afterward, she showed up at my door. No smile, no clipboard, just a manila folder. In it were typed out emails, signed memos, a document with regional initiative, Rural Behavioral Management, Phase 2, on the cover. Government seal stamped on it, and contacts that I knew. This wasn't some goofy local enforcement. This was part of an apparatus. I'd seen versions of this kind of doctrine before post-conflict engagement. Soft power, control tactics only now. It was inside a 3-ring binder and in my mailbox. Langston and the county attorney ripped that folder to shreds. They authenticated stamps and headers and confirmed what I had suspected. Karen was a hub in a larger network. Within 24 hours, there was a warrant. Karen's name surfaced in several counties' false citations, impersonation, financial fraud. Her game was straightforward. Push out rural owners, consolidate property, and use bureaucracy and fear as the blunt instrument. When sheriffs served the warrant on her home, they discovered a concealed office. Binders, maps, monitors, lists of residents, coded by compliance, level compliant, exit achieved, pending disruption. They discovered drone footage of my barn, recordings of porch conversations, psychological reinforcement tactics, an asset conversion model. It was less HOA paperwork and more like a playbook for displacement. There they processed 7 individuals associated with these operations. Few would speak. One did. He grinned through the bars and said, "Phase 4 isn't about you. It's about pattern disruption. You're the prototype." He winked. That line sent a chill down my spine. They weren't only after land. They were testing systems people first, then patterns, then disappearance. We discovered fake IDs, training rosters, emergency response scripts, and a photo with Karen in the middle titled Phase 4. Ground Team Unit 7. There were at least 6 additional units. The evidence was clear. This was systematic, trained, and scalable. The drone returned one morning, quicker and wiser than ever. I discovered a flawless burn circle close to the north fence, a black symbol with 2 slash marks. A sign seen on other targeted residences. It was not a warning signal. It was a mark of intent. Then 3 guys came in at night, no headlights, no car black jackets, and rifles. They indicated they were there for a seizure procedure. One had a forfeiture sheet. Another stood by the door as though waiting for someone else. I did not freak out. I activated countermeasures. Walls, strobe, barrages, flashbangs. I'd spent late nights setting up fail-safes for equipment thieves. They came in handy to deal with vigilante pseudo-enforcers as well. The room was crowded. Karen went to the podium with her volunteer enforcers standing like bouncers outside a nightclub. She spoke of safety and property values in idyllic tones and intimated a few people undermining community harmony. I stood. Your HOA police are illegitimate. They are an in-house security team with no mandate to fine, arrest, or intimidate residents. Gasps. I flashed screenshots linking the company to no legitimate contract. Neighbors swarmed to the pile of citations. No seals, no signatures, only bluffs and boilerplate. One officer panicked and fled. And then Alvarez came in through the doors. Uniform starched. Everybody remain calm. We are conducting an inquiry into unauthorized security protocols and potential extortion. He marched directly to Karen. Ma'am, I require you to accompany me to be questioned. She spluttered about contacts. Nobody supported her. The facade bursts open in public, in lights, with cameras recording. Fallout! What ensued happened quickly. Neighbors signed affidavits. The actual HOA performed an audit. Money diverted. Fines taken. Power invented. The security company was sued. Karen's uncle claimed innocence, but the scandal prompted his quiet resignation weeks later. At the bureau, internal affairs cleared me. The complaints? Withdrawn or recanted under oath. As coerced, my boss handed me the news with a rare smile. You were right. You're back on track! After the storm, the Phantom Cruiser disappeared. The HOA phones started working. Yards got mowed without warnings. Children rode bicycles. And individuals waved like neighbors when fear isn't the motivation. A few apologized for the misinformation. I let it pass. Fear is boisterous. Truth waits patiently. I'd kept my badge, my name, and my home. Karen tried to crown herself queen of a cul-de-sac, build a tiny empire of fear. In the end, sunlight and paperwork ended it. If you've ever faced a bully with a borrowed badge, here's your takeaway. Document everything. Stay calm. And bring the right allies. Intimidation crumbles under evidence. If you'd like part 2 how to identify and prevent HOA scams before they begin, leave a part 2 in the comments. And if this video had your heart racing, hit like, subscribe, and pass it along to someone who needs reminding. Even the best authority must answer to the truth.